What if I told you that a single number, just 2 digits, has quietly shaped the mindset, the discipline, and even the generosity behind some of the world's most successful people? Not a secret stock tip, not a hidden business hack, just a number. And yet this number carries a meaning so powerful that many Jewish millionaires write it on every check they sign. That number is 18, and it might completely change how you think about wealth. The number 18 holds a unique and deeply symbolic meaning in Jewish tradition, rooted in the Hebrew word kai, which translates to life. But this idea goes far beyond language or simple symbolism. It reflects a philosophy, a way of thinking about money, purpose, and existence itself. When Jewish individuals, especially those who are financially successful, choose to give or transact in multiples of 18, they are not acting out of superstition. They are reinforcing a belief that money is not just a tool for survival, but a force that should carry life, energy, and intention. Think about how most people view money. For many, it's associated with stress, fear, and limitation. It's something to protect, to hold on to tightly, to worry about losing. This mindset creates a kind of emotional weight around money. It turns every financial decision into a moment of tension. But the concept of chai introduces a completely different perspective. It suggests that money should be connected to something alive, something meaningful, something that contributes to growth and continuity. When someone writes a check for $18, $36, or $180, they are embedding this belief into their actions. It becomes a quiet but consistent reminder that wealth is not separate from life, it is a part of it. And more importantly, it has a role to play in enhancing life, not just for the individual, but for others as well. This is where the idea becomes powerful, because once you start associating money with life, your behavior begins to change in subtle but significant ways. You become more intentional. Instead of spending mindlessly, you begin to ask yourself whether your money is creating value, whether it is contributing to something meaningful. You start to see financial decisions not just in terms of profit or loss, but in terms of impact. This shift in perspective builds a stronger connection between your values and your actions. And over time, that alignment leads to better decisions, greater discipline, and a clearer sense of direction. There's also something deeply psychological happening here. Repetition creates belief. When you consistently attach the idea of life to your money through the number 18, you are training your mind to see wealth as something positive and dynamic. This reduces fear and increases confidence. It encourages you to engage with money more actively, rather than avoiding it or feeling overwhelmed by it. At the same time, this principle introduces a sense of responsibility. If money represents life, then how you use it matters. It's not just about accumulation anymore. It's about contribution. It's about ensuring that your wealth is not stagnant, but active, supporting growth, helping others, and creating opportunities. This mindset naturally leads to generosity, but not in a careless way. It becomes intentional, thoughtful, and aligned with a broader purpose. What makes this idea so impactful is its simplicity. It doesn't require complex strategies or advanced financial knowledge. It starts with a small, consistent action, using the number 18 as a reminder of what money truly represents. Yet over time, this small action can reshape your entire relationship with wealth. You begin to see money not as a source of anxiety, but as a resource for creating life in its fullest sense. Opportunity, security, growth, and contribution. And once that shift happens, everything changes. Your mindset evolves, your decisions improve, and your path toward wealth becomes clearer and more intentional. Most people think wealth grows by holding on tightly, saving every penny, avoiding risk, and protecting what they already have. On the surface, that sounds smart, but there's a deeper principle that many successful individuals understand. Money that sits still loses power, while money that moves with intention tends to grow. This is the idea behind the belief that money must flow to grow. Think of money like water. If water is constantly flowing, it stays fresh, useful, and life-giving. But if it becomes stagnant, trapped in one place, it starts to lose its value. The same principle applies to wealth. When money is locked away out of fear without purpose or direction, it may feel safe, but it isn't actively working for you. It's not creating new opportunities, not building connections, and not generating more value. People who understand this concept don't just spend money randomly. They circulate it strategically. They invest it, they give it, they use it to create something bigger than the original amount. Every time money moves with purpose, it opens the door for growth. That could mean investing in a business, learning a new skill, supporting a cause, or even helping someone else succeed. Each of these actions sends money out into the world with a direction, and in many cases, it comes back multiplied, not just financially, but in the form of relationships, knowledge, and opportunities. This doesn't mean reckless spending or careless generosity. Flow is not the same as waste. In fact, the key to making money grow is intentional movement. Every decision is guided by a question: is this creating value? When money is used in ways that generate value, whether that's through investment, education, or contribution, it tends to expand over time. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you adopt this mindset. When you stop seeing money as something you must protect at all costs, and instead see it as something you can direct and grow, you become more confident. You're no longer frozen by fear or hesitation. You're willing to take calculated risks. You're open to opportunities, and that openness is often what leads to breakthroughs. On the other hand, when money is held too tightly, fear begins to control decisions. You avoid investing because you're afraid of losing. You hesitate to give because you feel like there's never enough. You delay opportunities because you don't want to risk what you have. Over time, this mindset limits growth. It keeps you in a cycle of maintenance rather than expansion. The idea that money must flow to grow also connects deeply with the principle of giving. When people give intentionally, whether through charity or supporting others, they're not just losing money. They're participating in a cycle. They're contributing to something larger, and in many cases, that contribution creates goodwill, trust, and connections that can lead to future opportunities. It builds a sense of abundance rather than scarcity. Wealthy individuals who practice this principle often develop a system. They don't just earn money, they allocate it. A portion goes into investments, a portion into personal growth, a portion into giving. This structured flow ensures that money is always moving in a way that supports long-term growth rather than short-term comfort. Over time, this approach creates momentum. Money that is invested generates returns. Money spent on learning increases earning potential. Money given builds relationships and reputation. Each movement feeds into the next, creating a cycle where wealth continues to expand. When you truly understand this principle, your relationship with money changes. You stop asking, "How can I hold on to this?" and start asking, "Where should this go to grow?" That single shift transforms money from something static into something dynamic, a tool that works for you rather than something you simply try to keep. Most people assume that wealth is built purely through external factors: income, opportunities, connections, or luck. While those things matter, they are not the starting point. The foundation of wealth is internal. It begins with identity, the way you see yourself in relation to money, success, and possibility. Long before someone becomes wealthy in their bank account, they become wealthy in their thinking. Identity shapes behavior, and behavior shapes results. If a person sees themselves as someone who is bad with money, they will unconsciously make decisions that reinforce that belief. They might avoid learning about finances, hesitate to invest, or make impulsive spending choices. Even when opportunities appear, they may not take advantage of them, because deep down, they don't see themselves as someone who succeeds financially. On the other hand, someone who identifies as a disciplined, capable, and growth-oriented individual approaches money very differently. They are more likely to plan, to learn, to take calculated risks, and to stay consistent even when things don't go perfectly. Over time, these behaviors compound, leading to better financial outcomes. The difference isn't just in knowledge, it's in self-perception. This is why mindset plays such a critical role in wealth creation. When people talk about having an abundance mindset, they're not just being motivational. They're describing a way of thinking that directly influences action. Someone with an abundance mindset believes that opportunities exist, that value can be created, and that money can be earned in multiple ways. This belief makes them more open, more creative, and more willing to act. In contrast, a scarcity mindset creates hesitation. If you believe there's never enough money, you may cling tightly to what you have, avoid investing, and miss opportunities because of fear. You might see other people's success as a threat rather than inspiration. This kind of thinking limits growth, not because opportunities don't exist, but because you're not positioned to take advantage of them. What's important to understand is that identity is not fixed. It is shaped over time through experiences, beliefs, and repeated actions. Every financial decision you make either reinforces your current identity or begins to reshape it. For example, when you start budgeting consistently, you begin to see yourself as someone who is in control of their money. When you invest, even in small amounts, you start to identify as an investor. These small shifts build a new self-image, and that self-image influences future decisions. There is also a strong connection between identity and confidence. When you see yourself as capable, you're more willing to step into situations that can increase your wealth, negotiating a higher salary, starting a business, or exploring new opportunities. Confidence doesn't eliminate risk, but it makes you more willing to engage with it in a thoughtful way. Another key aspect is consistency. People often look for quick wins or shortcuts, but identity-driven behavior focuses on long-term habits. A person who identifies as financially disciplined doesn't just make one good decision, they make good decisions repeatedly. Over time, this consistency becomes a powerful force. Small actions, when repeated over months and years, lead to significant results. This is why two people with the same income can end up in completely different financial situations. It's not just about how much they earn, it's about how they think, how they act, and how they see themselves. One may view money as something to manage and grow, while the other sees it as something to spend or worry about. These identities guide their choices every day. When you shift your identity, everything else begins to follow. You start making decisions that align with the person you believe you are becoming. You seek out knowledge, you manage risk more effectively, and you stay focused on long-term growth rather than short-term comfort. Over time, this alignment between identity and action creates a natural path toward wealth. In the end, wealth is not just a financial outcome, it's a reflection of who you believe you are. And once that belief changes, your behavior changes with it, opening the door to entirely new possibilities. There's a common belief that giving money means losing it, that every dollar you give away is a dollar you'll never see again. On the surface, that seems logical, but many financially successful people operate with a very different understanding. They see giving not as a loss, but as a powerful habit that shapes how they think, how they act, and ultimately how they grow. The idea that giving unlocks receiving is not about magic or instant returns. It's about the transformation that happens within you when you consistently practice intentional generosity. When someone writes checks in meaningful amounts, like multiples of 18 tied to the idea of chai or life, they are doing more than donating. They are building a system of behavior. Each act of giving becomes a reminder that they are not operating from fear or scarcity. Instead, they are choosing to act from a place of control, purpose, and trust. This repetition matters, because over time it rewires how they relate to money. Giving creates discipline. It forces you to plan. You can't consistently give if you're careless with your finances. You have to become more aware of where your money is going, how much you're earning, and how you're managing it. This awareness naturally leads to better financial habits, budgeting, saving, investing. So in a way, giving strengthens the very foundation that allows wealth to grow. It also builds a sense of gratitude. When you give, you acknowledge that you have enough to share. That simple recognition shifts your mindset from, "I don't have enough," to "I have something valuable." And that shift is powerful. Gratitude reduces fear and anxiety around money, which allows you to think more clearly and make better decisions. Instead of reacting emotionally, you begin to act strategically. Another important effect of giving is that it changes how you see opportunities. When you operate from a mindset of contribution, you naturally become more connected to people and causes. You start to notice where you can add value, where you can help, where you can make a difference. These connections often lead to new relationships, and those relationships can open doors, whether in business, career, or personal growth. It's not that giving directly buys opportunities, but it places you in environments where opportunities are more likely to appear. There's also a deeper psychological element. When you give consistently, you begin to identify as someone who has enough and someone who can create more. This identity reduces the fear of loss. Instead of holding on to money tightly, you trust your ability to generate it again. That confidence changes how you approach risk. You become more willing to invest in yourself, to pursue ideas, to take calculated chances that can lead to growth. At the same time, intentional giving brings clarity. It forces you to decide what matters to you. You don't just give randomly, you give with purpose. That purpose could be supporting education, helping those in need, or contributing to something meaningful in your community. This clarity strengthens your values, and those values guide your financial decisions in other areas as well. You become less likely to waste money on things that don't align with what you truly care about. Over time, all of these effects compound. Better habits lead to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better outcomes. Stronger relationships lead to more opportunities. And a confident, disciplined mindset creates consistency. This is how giving, when done intentionally, becomes part of a larger system that supports long-term prosperity. It's important to understand that this isn't about expecting immediate financial returns from every act of generosity. The receiving doesn't always come in the same form or at the same time. Sometimes it comes as knowledge, sometimes as trust, sometimes as opportunity. But more importantly, it comes as growth within you, the kind of growth that makes sustained success possible. When giving becomes a habit, it stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like a strategy, one that strengthens your mindset, sharpens your discipline, and expands your perspective. And in that process, you position yourself not just to earn more, but to handle and grow what you earn in a far more powerful way. Most people see money as a neutral tool, something to earn, spend, save, or invest. But in reality, money becomes far more powerful when it is connected to a clear sense of purpose. Without purpose, money is easily wasted, mismanaged, or chased in ways that lead to short-term satisfaction but long-term emptiness. When purpose is introduced, everything changes. Money stops being just currency and becomes a force that can shape direction, decisions, and ultimately, the quality of your life. When you attach purpose to money, you begin to ask different questions. Instead of how much can I make, you start asking, why am I making this, and what is this money going to do? Bitsennites kopatsentuas so few and sotas, it readies no bordeus appeared faced. These questions create clarity. They force you to define what truly matters, whether it's providing security for your family, building something meaningful, supporting others, or creating freedom for yourself. Once that clarity exists, your financial decisions become more focused and intentional. This shift eliminates a lot of unnecessary behavior. People often spend money impulsively because they lack a clear direction. When there's no purpose guiding your actions, it's easy to fall into habits that drain your resources, buying things you don't need, chasing status, or trying to fill emotional gaps with material purchases. But when your money is tied to a bigger goal, those distractions lose their appeal. You become more disciplined, not because you're forcing yourself, but because you know what you're working toward. Purpose also brings consistency. Many people start strong with saving or investing, but lose momentum over time. The reason is simple: they don't have a strong enough why. When challenges arise, or when progress feels slow, they lose motivation. But when your financial actions are connected to something meaningful, it becomes easier to stay committed. You're not just managing money, you're building something that matters to you. That emotional connection fuels long-term consistency. Another powerful effect of purpose is that it improves decision-making. When faced with financial choices, you can evaluate them based on whether they align with your goals. This creates a filter. Opportunities that move you closer to your purpose become clearer, while distractions become easier to ignore. Over time, this leads to smarter use of resources, better investments, and fewer regrets. Purpose also changes how you view success. Without it, success is often measured only by numbers: how much you earn, how much you own, or how much you can display. But those measures can feel empty if they're not connected to something deeper. When purpose is involved, success becomes more meaningful. It's not just about accumulation, it's about impact, growth, and fulfillment. This creates a more balanced and sustainable approach to wealth. There's also a strong link between purpose and resilience. Financial journeys are rarely smooth. There will be setbacks, losses, and moments of uncertainty. Without purpose, these challenges can feel overwhelming, leading to frustration or giving up. But when you have a clear reason behind your actions, it becomes easier to push through difficulties. You see obstacles as part of the process rather than signs to stop. In addition, purpose often leads to better opportunities. When you're clear about what you want to achieve, you naturally start aligning your actions, relationships, and efforts in that direction. You seek out knowledge, connect with people who share similar goals, and place yourself in environments that support your growth. This alignment increases the likelihood of success because your actions are no longer random, they are directed. Over time, this creates a powerful cycle. Purpose drives better decisions. Better decisions lead to better results. Better results reinforce your sense of direction and confidence, and that confidence pushes you to aim higher and act more boldly. In the end, money by itself is limited. It can provide comfort and convenience, but without meaning, it lacks depth. When you connect it to purpose, it becomes something much greater, a tool for building the life you want, supporting the people you care about, and creating an impact that extends beyond yourself. That is when money truly becomes powerful, not just in what it can buy, but in what it can build.